Bung Karno. The name itself echoes through the corridors of Indonesian history. He was not merely the nation's first president, but its proclamator, its chief ideologue, the architect of Pancasila, and the voice that ignited a revolution. His ideals, particularly Marhaenism, a doctrine championing the cause of the common oppressed Indonesian, continue to resonate, a benchmark against which future leaders are often measured. His powerful oratory could move mountains and masses, shaping the very consciousness of a new nation. The question of his legacy is not just academic, it is a living debate in the heart of Indonesian politics, especially when new charismatic leaders emerge on the national stage. Then there is Anies Baswedan, a prominent figure in contemporary Indonesia, an intellectual with a background in academia, a former minister of education, and the former governor of Jakarta. He also contested the presidency, capturing significant attention. Anies, too, is known for his articulate speech, his ability to frame complex ideas, and his appeal to a segment of the population yearning for thoughtful leadership. His political journey, marked by both significant achievements and controversies, places him firmly in the national spotlight. As a modern leader, his actions and words inevitably invite comparison with the giants of the past, none more imposing than Bung Karno himself. So, how would Bung Karno, the fiery orator and champion of the little man, view Anies Baswedan? Would he see a kindred spirit, a successor continuing the struggle for a truly independent and just Indonesia? Or would he perceive a divergence, a path that, while perhaps well-intentioned, strays from the revolutionary ideals he held so dear? This is not a simple question with an easy answer. It requires a careful examination of Anies's record, his rhetoric, and his policies, all held up to the bright, often harsh light of Bung Karno's own words and deeds, his unwavering commitment to the Marhaen. This essay embarks on that comparative journey. We will delve into their shared love for knowledge and language, but also scrutinize if words translate into action. We will explore their visions for education. Is it for liberation, or merely for the marketplace? We will assess Anies's socio-economic stance against Bung Karno's fierce advocacy for the common people. Furthermore, we will examine their approaches to the delicate dance of religion and politics, and ultimately, their commitment to social justice and national unity as envisioned by the Proklamator. Could Anies Baswedan truly be considered an ideological son of Bung Karno? Let us explore. Bung Karno was a maestro of the spoken word. His speeches were not mere political addresses. They were historical events, powerful incantations that could galvanize a nation. He understood, perhaps better than anyone, the profound power of language to shape thought, to inspire courage, and to mobilize millions towards a common goal. For Bung Karno, rhetoric was an indispensable weapon in the arsenal of revolution, a tool for ideological dissemination, and a medium for educating the masses. His words were imbued with passion, historical consciousness, and an unshakable belief in Indonesia's destiny, resonating deeply with the soul of a people fighting for their identity and freedom from colonial chains. Anies Baswedan, in his own right, is a recognized orator. His speeches are often characterized by their intellectual depth, careful construction, and conceptual clarity. Coming from an academic background, he brings a certain scholarly polish to his public addresses, often weaving in narratives and philosophical reflections. His supporters admire his ability to articulate visions and policies in a manner that is both thoughtful and, at times, inspiring. He projects an image of a leader who values ideas and can communicate them effectively, a skill that has certainly contributed to his political ascent and his ability to connect with a diverse range of audiences across the archipelago. If Bung Karno were to listen to Anies, he would undoubtedly acknowledge, and perhaps even appreciate, the younger man's command of language and his intellectual approach to communication. The Proklamator himself was a voracious reader and a lifelong learner. However, appreciation would quickly turn into critical assessment. For Bung Karno, eloquence was never an end in itself. It had to serve a purpose, a revolutionary purpose. He famously declared that action must follow words, jangan mandek, tetapi dedication of life kita harus terjelma dalam amal dan perbuatan. Don't just stop, but our dedication of life must manifest in deeds and actions. Therefore, the crucial question Bung Karno would pose is this: Does Anies's rhetoric lead to tangible, transformative action for the Marian? Do his well-crafted sentences ignite a fire for social justice? Or do they remain within the realm of political aesthetics, pleasing to the ear, but failing to challenge the fundamental structures of inequality? Bung Karno, who demanded kerja, perjuangan, dan darah, work, struggle, and blood, would probe whether these words mobilize the masses for genuine change, or merely serve to cultivate a sophisticated political persona. The true test of words, in Bung Karno's eyes, was their power to become deeds. Anies Baswedan's career is deeply intertwined with the world of education. Before entering full-time politics, he served as a university rector, and later as Indonesia's Minister of Education and Culture. He initiated programs like Indonesia Mengajar, Indonesia Teaches, which sent young graduates to teach in remote areas, and consistently spoke about the importance of literacy, character building, and empowering teachers. His vision for education often emphasizes creating access to quality learning environments and fostering a humanistic approach, aiming to develop well-rounded individuals. These are commendable goals that resonate with many who seek improvements within the national education system. Bung Karno, too, placed immense importance on education. He saw it as a cornerstone of nation building and, crucially, as a tool for mental revolution. Revolusi sejati adalah revolusi mental, dan pendidikan adalah medan perangnya, he proclaimed, viewing education not just as skill acquisition, but as a process of decolonizing the mind and forging a strong national identity. For him, education was about liberation, freeing Indonesians from inferiority complexes, from the vestiges of colonial mentality, and empowering them to think critically and creatively as proud citizens of a sovereign nation. It was about building character rooted in Indonesian values. Were Bung Karno to assess Anies's educational initiatives, he would likely offer praise for the focus on access and teacher development. The spirit of volunteerism in programs like Indonesia Mengajar might even remind him of the revolutionary spirit of youth. However, his scrutiny would go much deeper, beyond the immediate programs. He would relentlessly question the ultimate aim. Is this educational framework designed to truly liberate the Indonesian people from all forms of oppression, including the subtle yet pervasive influence of neo-colonial thought and global capitalist pressures? Or is it, perhaps unintentionally, geared more towards producing a skilled workforce, primarily to serve the demands of the global market? The Proklamator was wary of an education system that merely produced cogs for an exploitative machine. He would probe, does Anies's educational philosophy actively cultivate a critical consciousness, a spirit of anti-imperialism, and a deep understanding of Marxism? Or does it risk creating competitive human resources who are adept at navigating the global economy but lack the revolutionary zeal to challenge systemic injustices within their own society? For Bung Karno, education's highest calling was to forge individuals who were not just skilled, but also politically conscious and dedicated to the emancipation of their people. Anies Baswedan hails from an academic family, and his own journey includes education at prestigious institutions both in Indonesia and abroad, culminating in a PhD from the United States. His career trajectory, moving from academia to influential political positions like minister and governor, naturally places him within the educated, urban middle class, if not the elite. This background shapes his perspective, and inevitably, his approach to policymaking. He is often seen as representing a modern, intellectual brand of leadership, comfortable in international forums, and articulate in discussing complex governance issues. This is a profile that many find appealing in a modern leader. This contrasts sharply with Bung Karno's passionate and often fiery identification with the Marhaen, the term he coined to describe the impoverished masses of Indonesia, the small farmers, laborers, and fishermen, oppressed by both foreign colonialism and domestic feudal structures. Bung Karno was deeply critical of intellectuals who remained aloof from the people's suffering. Kaum intelektual Janghanja memikirkan nasibnya sendiri adalah pengkhianat bangsa. Intellectuals who only think of their own fate are traitors to the nation, he thundered, demanding that the educated elite use their knowledge and skills to serve the downtrodden, not to entrench their own privileges. When evaluating Anies, Bung Karno would meticulously examine his policies, particularly those implemented during his tenure as governor of Jakarta. Programs such as the Rumah DP Nol Rupiah, zero down payment housing, or initiatives for Penataan Kampung, village revitalization, would come under intense scrutiny. Were these programs truly transformative for the poorest segments of society? Did they genuinely empower the marginalized and reduce the gaping inequalities that plague cities like Jakarta? Or were they, in essence, technocratic solutions that offered cosmetic improvements without fundamentally challenging the power structures that perpetuate poverty and dispossession, perhaps even inadvertently benefiting developers and the middle class more? The essence of Marhaenism, as Bung Karno envisioned it, was an unwavering, radical commitment to the Wong Cilik, the little people. He would relentlessly ask if Anies's socio-economic vision demonstrates this unwavering commitment. Does it dare to dismantle exploitative economic systems? Does it prioritize the needs of the many over the interests of the few? Or do his policies ultimately represent a more centrist, pragmatic approach that seeks balance, but hesitates to undertake the kind of radical restructuring Bung Karno believed was necessary to achieve true social justice for the Marhaen? This would be the Proklamator's fundamental line of inquiry. Section 5. Navigating Faith and State. Unifier or divider? Anies Baswedan is often perceived as a figure who can comfortably navigate the intersection of nationalism and religious identity. He frequently engages with various religious communities, and his public persona often reflects an observant Muslim identity. His political trajectory, especially his victory in the highly polarized 2017 Jakarta gubernatorial election, was significantly bolstered by support from conservative Islamic groups. This association has become a defining characteristic of his political image, leading to discussions about his stance on the role of religion in the public sphere and its implications for Indonesia's pluralistic society. Bung Karno himself had a profound respect for Islam and acknowledged its vital role as a moral and social force within Indonesian society. He often spoke of Islam as a source of inspiration for justice and liberation, a tenaga pembebas, liberating force. However, he was also acutely aware of the dangers of religious sectarianism and vehemently opposed any attempts to use religion as a political tool to divide the nation. His vision for Indonesia, encapsulated in Pancasila, was one where diverse religious beliefs could coexist harmoniously under a unifying national ideology, with Ketuhanan Yang Maha Esa, belief in the one God, as the first principle, interpreted inclusively. If Bung Karno were to observe Anies's political approach today, he might commend his ability to connect with and mobilize religious constituents, recognizing the importance of faith in Indonesian life. However, this commendation would be accompanied by a stern warning. The Proklamator, who tirelessly worked to forge national unity out of immense diversity, would be deeply concerned about any actions or rhetoric that could exacerbate religious tensions or lead to the politicization of faith in a way that undermines inclusivity. Agama harus menjadi tenaga pembebas, bukan alat pemecah belah. Religion must be a liberating force, not a divisive tool, he would powerfully assert, echoing his past speeches. The ultimate test for Bung Karno would be whether Anies's engagement with religious politics serves to strengthen the inclusive national fabric envisioned by Pancasila, or if it risks catering to particular segments in a way that could alienate others. Can Anies truly embody a leadership that embraces all Indonesians, regardless of their religious or ethnic background, as Bung Karno strived to do? Or does his path, willingly or unwillingly, contribute to the deepening of identity-based cleavages? For the architect of Indonesian unity, this would be a paramount concern, a question of fundamental national integrity. Section 6. Jakarta's Crucible, Pragmatism versus Revolutionary Zeal. During his 5-year term as governor of Jakarta, from 2017 to 2022, Anies Baswedan cultivated a leadership style often described as calm, methodical, and diplomatic. He focused on a range of urban development programs, including the construction of the Jakarta International Stadium, improvements to public transportation networks, the revitalization of sidewalks and public spaces, and various kampung upgrading schemes. His administration emphasized a collaborative approach to urban planning, seeking input from diverse stakeholders, and often highlighting kota kolaborasi, collaborative city, as a guiding principle for development. Despite these efforts and tangible outputs, Anies's governorship also faced its share of criticism. Some observers and residents felt that his approach, while producing visible changes in certain areas, was insufficiently transformative in tackling Jakarta's deeply entrenched systemic problems. Issues like chronic flooding, severe traffic congestion, persistent socio-economic inequality, and the overarching influence of capital in urban spatial planning remained significant challenges. Critics argued that his administration, for all its programs, did not bring about the kind of fundamental shift needed to address these complex, long-standing urban crises effectively. Bung Karno's philosophy of leadership was starkly different. It was inherently revolutionary. He believed that a true leader must not shy away from bold, decisive action, even if it meant menggengkang status quo, shaking up the status quo. He advocated for confronting powerful vested interests, including dominant market forces and entrenched corporate power, if they stood in the way of the people's welfare. Looking at Jakarta, Bung Karno might question if Anies truly challenged the forces that perpetuate inequality, such as the unchecked development of elite enclaves at the expense of affordable housing or green spaces for the common people. From the Proklamator's perspective, managing a complex metropolis like Jakarta effectively is a commendable skill, but it is distinct from leading a revolutionary struggle for social justice. He would probe, did Anies's governance in Jakarta fundamentally alter the power dynamics in favor of the Marhaen, the city's vast population of urban poor and working class? Or did a more pragmatic, managerial approach ultimately overshadow the revolutionary spirit required to tackle the structural injustices that continue to define the urban landscape? For Bung Karno, leadership was less about incremental improvements, and more about courageous, systemic transformation for the many. Section 7. Global Currents and National Self-Reliance, Anies and Berdikari. Anies Baswedan's approach to economic development, as seen during his time as governor and in his broader national discourse, has generally embraced international engagement. His policies have not typically shown a strong aversion to foreign investment or global capitalist frameworks. Instead, there has often been an openness to partnerships with international economic actors, and a focus on integrating Jakarta, and by extension Indonesia, into global networks for trade, investment, and technological advancement. This pragmatic approach seeks to leverage global opportunities for national development, a common strategy in contemporary governance. This stance presents a notable contrast to Bung Karno's fervent championing of Berdikari, an acronym for Berdiri di atas kaki sendiri, meaning to stand on one's own feet. This was a core tenet of his economic philosophy, born from a deep suspicion of neo-colonialism and its various manifestations, including economic dependency. Imperialism modern datangnya tidak dengan bedil dan meriam lagi, tetapi dengan investasi dan utang. Modern imperialism no longer comes with rifles and cannons but with investment and debt, he famously warned. For Bung Karno, true national independence was incomplete without economic sovereignty, free from the dictates of foreign capital and global powers. If Bung Karno were to scrutinize Anies's economic vision, he would do so with an intensely critical eye, focusing on the principle of self-reliance. He would relentlessly question whether Anies's policies genuinely foster an independent national economy, or if they risk deepening Indonesia's dependence on foreign capital and global market fluctuations. Does the development model prioritize the strengthening of state-owned enterprises and cooperatives, which Bung Karno saw as crucial pillars of a people-centric economy? Or does it grant excessive space and influence to large private corporations, both domestic and foreign, potentially at the expense of the Marhaen? The Proklamator demanded more than just economic growth. He demanded economic justice and sovereignty. He would look for concrete evidence that Anies's eloquent speeches about progress and fairness are translated into policies that actively resist economic colonization and prioritize the building of an economy that truly serves the Indonesian people, not just the interests of global markets or a select few. For Bung Karno, Kata yang menjadi daging, words that become flesh, meant tangible steps towards an economy controlled by and for Indonesians, demonstrating the courage to say go to hell with your aid, if it compromised national dignity and self-determination. Section 8. Pancasila's Guardian and the Verdict of History. Bung Karno bequeathed Pancasila to Indonesia not merely as a state philosophy but as the very soul of the nation, a philosophische Grondslag, philosophical foundation, and a light star, guiding star. He envisioned it as a dynamic, unifying ideology capable of harmonizing the diverse currents within Indonesian society. Nationalism, Abrahamic religious values, implicitly including Islam, Christianity, etc. Under Ketuhanan Yang Maha Esa, and social justice, often interpreted through a socialist lens. For him, national unity, built upon the principles of Pancasila, was sacrosanct, an absolute prerequisite for Indonesia's survival and progress. But this unity had to be deeply rooted in social justice for all its citizens. Considering Anies Baswedan, while he consistently articulates his commitment to Indonesian nationalism and the state ideology, his political journey has included moments where his associations have raised questions among some segments of society. Particularly, the intense identity politics surrounding the 2017 Jakarta election led to concerns about his capacity to be a truly unifying figure for all Indonesians, capable of transcending group interests to embrace the nation's rich diversity in the spirit Bung Karno championed. Persatuan Indonesia, Bung Karno emphasized, bukanlah persatuan kaum ningrat dengan kaum ningrat, tetapi persatuan antara semua golongan, semua suku, semua agama, untuk kepentingan bersama. Indonesian unity is not the unity of aristocrats with aristocrats, but unity among all groups, all ethnicities, all religions, for the common good. Bung Karno, ever the astute judge of character and political substance, might acknowledge Anies Baswedan's evident intelligence, his sophisticated education, and his polished communication skills. He would see these as valuable assets that any leader would require. However, for the Proklamator, such attributes, while necessary, were far from sufficient. The true measure of leadership, in the Sukarnoist mold, lay in an unshakable and demonstrable commitment to the Marhaen, an unwavering courage to confront and dismantle oppressive structures, and a clear, unequivocal rejection of oligarchy, corruption, and all forms of neo-colonial influence that undermine national sovereignty. Potential is one thing, revolutionary praxis is another. Ultimately then, could Anies Baswedan be considered an ideological son of Bung Karno? If his political actions and policy choices remain primarily within the sphere of articulate rhetoric, competent city management, and pragmatic political maneuvering, without a fundamental, radical challenge to the entrenched economic and political powers that perpetuate injustice, Bung Karno would likely deliver a stern no. True ideological succession, in his eyes, is forged in the crucible of struggle, in the unwavering defense of the common people, and in the relentless pursuit of a truly sovereign and just Indonesia. As Bung Karno himself often reminded, setiap pemimpin akan diadili oleh sejarah, dan sejarah hanya berpihak pada mereka yang berpihak pada rakyat. The final judgment, as always, belongs to history and to the people.